Good evening and welcome to Lisa's Nightcap. This is the last one before we take a break for a while, and so I can't thank you enough for tuning in now, or even if you're watching later. It's been so great to spend this time with you. And hot off the press, Piaf Dietrich, the show about Edith Piaf and Marlene Dietrich, just won the Dora Award for Best Production, the final award of the night for Best Production. A little bit of a shock. Not that I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. But it's very exciting. You may know it is The Angel and Sparrow, where it made its world premiere with this adaptation by Aaron Shields at the Segal Center, and we're so thrilled that Thomas and Daniel, the original writers from Vienna, we got to do this work and have it, and with Louise Pitre, and it's very exciting. So cheers to Piaf Dietrich and to all of the artists back in Toronto, our friends, and this evening that celebrated such incredible work by so many. We're just so happy to be a part of it. So congratulations. All right, well, tonight I am so excited that I get to spend the full hour with a dear colleague and friend. Let me tell you about Ray Hogg. So Ray was raised in Montreal and started dancing later than most professional dancers, which we'll talk about. Graduated from Dawson's Dome Theatre program and then Ryerson. And he's had an illustrious career as a professional dancer, from starring in Cats in Germany to the Stratford Festival, before going on to becoming artistic director of Rainbow Stage in Winnipeg. And he's directed and choreographed for Sheridan, Drayton, Neptune, Shaw, and Stratford. Most recently, he was the choreographer for our production of Indecent and won the Meta Award for Best Choreography. And now he's also doing wonderful things that we're going to talk about. But if you're like me and maybe have kids who are pre-teeny, then you may also know him as Mr. Crankovich. And so take a look. Here's an intro to Ray Hogg.
Roll call. Lutzu. Lutzu. Bianca. Bianca. Crankovich. Crankovich.
That's so funny. Just a little teaser.
I have to say that as a performer, my most favorite job ever was that one. Because the notes they would give us, they'd be like, "Okay, everybody, that was really good. Now can we go for more joy?" Every note was about happiness and joy and being, sweeter and kinder. It's like, yeah, I could work on that. I could work on that all day.
I can't tell you how well. First, when we found the video, Mel is a witness, but I still know the entire song off by heart. That is how many hours I must have spent watching it with babies who were just like this.
I know, it's mesmerizing.
At the whatever you were doing. But
that's my little bitty claim to fame. If you're under 5 years old.
If you're under 5 years old. I know, it's too bad. I don't think the next generation picked up on it. You're down in the Treehouse Hall of Fame.
Yeah, right. It has spanned generations out there. So there are people who are now. So a friend of mine's sister just clued in that I was Captain Crankovich, and she was like, "Oh my God, how am I just finding this out now?" Because we've been hanging out for maybe 3 or 4 years. And her oldest daughter, just graduated high school. So that age. I also have been in university programs teaching adults, and they're like, "Wait a minute, are you?" So,
well, what about your own kids?
They're so blasé. I mean, by the time we had our daughter, we didn't have cable anymore. We had cut the cord. So my son had seen it, but it's funny. I don't know. It's like your own kids.
I know. It's embarrassing.
They're just not impressed. Yeah, they're like, "Oh, whatever." My cousin's kids or anyone else's kids is just like, "Wow, it's so amazing." But for my kids, my kids are also such theater kids. They come to see everything, and they're hard to impress.
So good. So I was just thinking this, as I was getting ready to have this chat with you, that had we got together a month ago, it would have been me and you, and we would have chatted about making theater.
Yep.
And yet here we are, and it's no longer just Ray, the artist. It's Ray, an artist of color. And I'm both, I guess, sorry, grateful, like the Sondheim song, because I'm grateful that I'm open to this idea of needing to see it and needing to talk about it and to have these conversations. But I'm sorry that, like, I can only imagine what this has been like for you, and maybe experiences that you have gone through, and that that you've maybe dealt with, and so many artists of color have dealt with for so long. So I do want to acknowledge that, and because we can't really have this conversation without it. Yeah. And I guess, how are you? How are you doing with everything?
Yeah, I am okay. Like Ray the person. I think we had a big discussion in my house about this. In part, like, so my parents were an interracial couple, and I've been an interracial couple, and so we're having a conversation about everything, and what is the work? Because I've been hearing a lot, like, hey, white people, it's your turn to do the work. And I think that there are lots of people who don't really know what the work is. And so we were, in our couple talking about it. And I said, one of the things that's been hurtful has been the very regular behavioral adjustments that I've had to make in order to keep, like, my father okay, comfortable, my grandparents, my cousins, my uncles, my aunts on the white side of my family, right? To keep sort of their comfort in the center of things. There's this bit of sort of cognitive dissonance where you don't want to hurt these people because you love them, but at the same time they're inadvertently hurting you, right? So one of the things I talked about, I said, what I am is like a scholar of the structures that exist to keep white people comfortable, and we call those structures white supremacy, right, or systemic racism. That's what that is. And just by virtue of growing up in my house, growing up in my skin, I had to become an expert. And so I was like, the work is, it's now your turn to become an expert. You don't even know it exists, right? But you've got to now analyze what is all this? What's it built on? What are the supports? How is it buttressed? What's the roof like? Like, you've got to figure out this structure as well as I have, so that you can now understand. You build the empathy to understand what people of color are going through. So that was like a long preamble, but like,
no, it's I don't know. I can never get enough of having it explained, because it's like, you can't just, you can't go to therapy once and be cured.
That's right.
And it's like, it's a long game. You got to be in it for the long game.
Yeah. Nor do you become an expert from one BuzzFeed article, right? It's like,
right.
It's taken me a long time, and a lot of, I will say, it's not just in life, it's also in theater, like a lot of desire on my part to achieve in the theater. And so I've had to also become an expert at how to navigate, how does theater work for a person of color, and figure out the safest route. And I would be a fool if I didn't acknowledge my own privilege also in this. I am not the darkest hued person, and shamefully that has afforded me a lot of privilege in the work I do. I remember in 2008, I was in the cast of Dreamgirls, and it was like a watershed moment for me. I loved it. It was so amazing to be in this gorgeous show with all these incredible actors that many of whom I had never met before. I'd never even heard of them before. And at that point, I had been doing musicals for years, right? And I don't know I can't remember who it was, but I was like, God, I'm just so happy to finally meet you. He was like, yeah, well, it's very different when you're a dark-skinned brother. And I was like, yes, it is. I you know, places loved me because I was dark, but not, dark enough, but not too dark, black enough, but not too black. So
Yeah.
that gave me a lot of privilege, and a lot more doors opened, I think, for me than for some of my colleagues and peers. And, it would be wrong for me to pretend that didn't exist, but definitely, like I said, it became an expert. And so what that means is I figured out how to stay safe and sane and whole. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I listened to the Stratford Forum, and they were addressing the how the different colors affect their work and affect everything. And again, another great learning opportunity for that. It's and I remember like working with you on Indecent, and one of the first things you did in the first day of rehearsal was you told everybody who you were. Like, this is me. I'm going to call you Precious. I'm going to call you this. I use terms of endearment. Please don't take it as this. Like, you had to lay down the law of who you are and what you're going to bring to this and how you work, like you were carving out a protective zone around you so that you could do the work. But then only later on, I think in maybe the third week of rehearsal, where we started to really connect about identity. And did you talk about, needing to teach yourself, to teach others not to be afraid of you? Like you, the way you talk to people is specifically so you can get the reactions you want and how people treat you. And again, it was like this, I remember like yesterday, because it was so profound, that statement that's something you have to carry.
Yeah. I mean, I also, this is unrelated but related. I also, I can't eat ice cream. It makes me very sick. So I don't miss ice cream. Do you know what I mean? Whenever we're at the cottage and everyone has a big bowl of ice cream, and someone who doesn't know that I can't eat it, they go, "Oh, Ray, aren't you having ice cream?" And I say, "No, it makes me sick." They go, "Oh, poor you." And I'm like, "No, all I've ever known is that ice cream makes me sick." So there is this weird flip side of it's also all I've ever known is that additional labor. But boy, would it ever be not, sometimes in a room like the Indecent room was so safe and so supportive and loving, right? Like, it just I'm hugging the air right now. The whole thing felt like a great big hug. That I felt like I could really share it. Oh, look at everybody! It's so beautiful.
Wow, look how close we are.
But it was a space that I could really share, which doesn't always happen. That you're not always in those kinds of rooms, but yeah, it would be really nice to not have that extra labor, for sure, to just show up and do the job. Yeah.
I mean, you've been working in theater for, I don't know, 20 years now.
Yeah.
Is this do you feel I'm trying, is this a relief for you that now things are going to change, hopefully, or that these conversations are happening? Have you experienced so much of what others have, and what?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think, all of the stories shared in the Stratford Black Like Me conversation and in the dressing room, all of those are intimately familiar, as in have happened to my person. Things like you're in a show and you're playing a butler, and you're like, your first read is a little bit sassy, me, because I'm like, nobody on earth wants to clean your underwear or make your tea. Nobody does. I don't even want to do that for my children. Right? Why would I want to do that for a boss? And the director was like, "Oh, no. This guy loves his job." And I was like, "Really?" Clearly, you've never had a job cooking for somebody. I mean, I haven't either, but I know that nobody likes to do that, right? So like that kind of stuff where there's just a complete lack of awareness of where people are coming from. Absolutely, and what I had hoped, and what hurt me watching that live stream was it was incredible to see the generations represented, and I have heard in my own time from the generations above me, everything that they did, the paving of the roads that they did on our behalf, and I have benefited from that, and I have felt that benefit. I felt, Don Jordan that you introduced me to, like, Donnie telling me stories of him being the perfect person for, I think it was Crazy for You when Mervish or Livent did it in Toronto, and they saw him up one side of the mountain and down the other, like he was in it, callback after callback after callback. And then, at the 11th hour, someone's like, yeah, but he's like a black man. He can't star in this show. And it was like, and it ended. But then he did something else. And then that something else meant that by the time I came around, they were like, actually, this black man can be in the show. So it's like, I've been so aware of the labor, the work they did. And then also with, I think, a lot of pride was like, I have broad shoulders. I will also do what I can to ease my younger colleagues' path as well. And when I heard the pain that the young people in that broadcast were experiencing, that was that was why I launched the theater company that week. It was because in response to those young people, and I realized that many of them don't know me because I haven't been at Stratford for a number of years. I think 2007 or 8 was my last season there. So many of them don't know me. And I also realized that many people have no idea how often I'm on the phone with people like you making recommendations, right? That I have this very active life and a very comprehensive database of all kinds of artists, and that I've become this resource in the national community. And so I was like, my goodness, the young people need to know that somebody out there is working on their behalf, right? So this was not how I intended to launch this company. As you know, I was meant to direct The Kink in My Hair at the Arts Club in Vancouver, and you were going to come see it. And what I was working at was getting you and these 3 other ADs together to work on a co-production, because in my opinion, it's a Canadian masterwork, but it's underproduced. And so that's what I wanted the company to stand on is these pieces that are incredible, that should be on big stages, main stages across the country. But for one reason or another, I won't say what they are, they're not being produced. And so I want to bring people together and kind of broker co-productions, whether I'm involved as an artist or not, right? I think I also wear that leadership hat where sometimes you're like, I might not be the right artist, but I can definitely connect you. So when COVID happened and that production was canceled, I was like, okay, well, I guess this company goes back in my Google Drive. But then the Stratford broadcast, so Prime Mover Theater Company, was born, and it's really born of, it's an extension of what I do. So it's that database, it's the connecting people and projects with artistic directors across the country, and of course, training and education, because I guess that's the kind of house I grew up in, where it's like, get an education was so pounded into our brains that I've really internalized that, and I appreciate my own education. I see how it really has carried me through this industry. So that's the Prime Mover Theater Company stands on those 3 pillars. One, advocacy with the Prime Mover Artist Database for underrepresented and marginalized artistic voices. We have a development branch where we work with people who have works in development to really polish them and make them ready for main stages, because really I'm a large scale guy. Like, I do big shows on big stages, so that's what I'm looking for. And I know that there are writers who are ready to write those shows. So working with them, kind of, I Womb to Tomb, West Side Story. Like, if you have a story inside you, but you have no technique, you don't know how to write, I have trainers who will teach you how to write, like story 101, all the way to plans for the future. When we have our funding in place for a larger commission, I'm really excited to do what I'm calling the Legacy Commission, to commission mature senior artists to write plays that will get big premieres across the country. So big plans, big
Ray,
ideas.
don't forget the small cast shows for a little bit, Ray.
I won't. I won't.
We're gonna need those for a little bit.
We are. And I should say, even like when you look at Indecent, so let's call that a small cast show.
Yeah.
Right? It's not 30. Even that was like big production values there. Look at that. Feathers and bass clarinets and upside down violinists.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that that those artists went for it. I'm so pleased and so proud of them all.
Looks so good.
I know.
Looks so good.
Such a nutty scene.
I love this company already. And I think in a lot of the conversations I'm having, there's a lot we can't necessarily flip the switch and change right away. There's stuff we can, but the mentorship idea, the pipeline idea, the investing, starting early on, so that they're there and there's growth, I think is huge.
It's a tricky piece to navigate, and this revealed itself to me with the kink in my hair at the Arts Club, and it's not as a judgment, but the Arts Club, it's a historically white institution. It's in Vancouver, and most of the people who work there are white, and we're working on the kink in my hair, which from inception is like rooted in African and Caribbean culture, which is so different from European culture, to the point where the score would have 2 notes written in it and then just rests because it would say improvise, which for a person rooted in European tradition, that's not helpful. Right? You're like, what do you mean improvise? For how long? Is there a bridge? How am I going to teach those harmonies? Right? But that in the gospel tradition, or in many of the African traditions, a improvisational call and answer music making is totally normal. So what I realized on that project, and I was working with Trey Anthony, brilliant playwright, at reformatting the script and the score so that European eyes, white eyes, would look at it and recognize it, right? So it's like, and sometimes when I say polish, it's even that. It's to take what exists and not alter it at all, just reformat it so that somebody who's not used to looking at a different cultural work can find a way in and understand what's going on, right? So like even at that level of things. But that's also to say, we can make all sorts of assumptions about. I think there are legions of young, very talented white artists who have the bravery and confidence to just call up a theater and say, "Hey, Lisa, I want mentorship," and you respond by going, "Wow, I love this plucky young artist. Come on, yes, you're talented. Let's go." But artists who come from different cultural traditions, for starters, they see your institution as having all kinds of obstacles that they can't pierce through. And then if and when they do, the material, or they themselves, present in a way that's unfamiliar. I mean, let's just say that they muster the confidence and the bravery to face rejection that is so different than, "Oh, I didn't like your work." The rejection is, "I don't like you." Let's just be clear, right? That it's very different than, "Okay, dust yourself off, they didn't like the piece." No. What you receive, and you understand it because you've been understanding this from your childhood, is that they do not like you and they do not like your culture. So what I want to do is work with those artists and help them develop the confidence and help them develop a practice, so that for the moment, the gatekeepers at the institutions are still by and large white people. So for the moment, I still want these underrepresented artists to book work, and I want their projects on stage. So I'm going to help them bridge that gap so that the Lisa Rubins, the Jeremy Webbs, the of the world can get a little bit of cultural context and understand the piece and the person they're looking at, right? Because sometimes it's unrecognizable. but like a storyteller is a storyteller, even if the form could be anything, right? But ultimately what we're doing is telling stories that are meant to impact and connect with people. So who cares what the form is? Who cares if we recognize the form? It's the impact. Do we feel what they're saying? So
yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that, in terms of the way I experience theater is through my lens and my tastes. And perhaps my tastes are a better reflection of my audience than most people. But, and how to then ask myself, or how an audience can lean into things that are not necessarily their taste, but yet they still have to connect. Otherwise, you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah,
so
totally.
It's
and there's a step before that, and that's it. You're the gatekeeper at the Segal, so that's it. The step is for you to look past form. I'm always dancing, to look past whatever form is unrecognizable and be like, is there a story in there that is like hitting my heart, that's like hitting my gut? If the answer is yes, well, then it's going to do the same thing for your audience, right? At first, they might be like, what is this form? Who are these people? Right? But if the story is good, and if the storyteller has worked with, experts, of which there are piles, they're like, this notion that was brought up in Black Like Me of, oh, there only being so many talented Black artists. That's false. I've never heard anything more false in my life. There are so many senior artists, expert artists, people that I bow down and kiss the ground they walk on, right? We can teach the young people with the brilliant stories how to craft a piece so that the audience gets that, receives that impact, right? And so that we can change forms a little bit, cultural forms, and then you're having then it's like that idea of enriching your community, right? So in my house, there's a very corporate person and there's a very artsy person, and often we're both in leadership positions, and we talk about leadership in both universes. And I'm struck by how if you're not for profit, you have to be for something, right? And so we're chasing impact, we're chasing enrichment, like we're meant to improve society. And I think that is only happening if we're coming together in some way, right?
I think you were on the Black Theater Workshop's mentorship program, their showcase.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to speak to one of the artists. There's some really exciting talent there. And
I like the writers
about my conversation with one of the artists. At one point, we got into just actual, very practical, like, just, if you're a dancer, please learn how to do a clean double. And I've always loved that about you too. And when we talk about artists, does this role require a very strong dramatic actor? Does this role require someone how to know how to do a time step, or can they learn one? And now I'm even picking those apart and asking, are those built upon white theater? And or can it be what the stories, or what the a dance number is going to require? But whoever is going to be talking to you is going to be so lucky, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because you have the experience of running a company, of working yourself as an artist, of teaching. Okay, so moving on for a bit. And hi, Richard. I saw you guys. So great to see you. I want to talk about other things you're doing. So Prime Mover Company, amazing. I'm sure I can just see you like going national and everybody calling you, and it's going to be amazing.
Already 2 major training projects in the works with 2 flagship flagship institutions, and there's room for more. So please,
Wow.
please
Wow. So
call
good.
me. Yeah.
So,
Okay. Moving on. Moving on.
Okay, moving on. So let's hear about what's happening at Musical Stage Company. One of my favorite Toronto companies. I love them so much, and like what you're doing there sounds really exciting too.
So it's like the number of job titles I've had on is crazy in the past 6 months. So I first came on as an artistic consultant. Again, doing very similar work to what I do. I'm doing with Prime River Theatre Company, which is advising and casting, a little bit of advising with programming, and then really taking on the running of the education and professional development programs. So I took over from Kevin Wong, who's an incredible artist. Oh my goodness, if you haven't heard of him, if you haven't heard his music, in real life is outrageous. I think people must have seen the Sheridan College in real life performance that they.
I've actually read the script and listened to the whole score.
Right, like he's
and
so good.
I could see it as a movie.
Right, I know. It's like here's the shame of COVID is that doing the show at Sheridan was meant to have a main stage production that Anne Hodges, brilliant director Anne Hodges, was meant to helm. And of course, they had to switch it to online, which is also very timely and interesting. So yes, that the whole like, how does this piece work in production question is still a question out there, but you know what? But at the same time, artists are problem solvers. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they'll figure it out. Like, what I want to know is, what were the meetings when Cats was being pitched?
The movie? Okay.
No,
so we have to say Ray was in Cats.
Can you spot me? Oh, there I am. I always say prettiest cat ever whenever I see those pictures.
I just, I guess because I loved Cats. I knew the dance. It was all my jazz classes. We all learned Cats. And the fascination of watching everyone put on their makeup. And then now I'm like, how did you dance and not sweat off the makeup?
Oh, it's a process. Oh my God, there's so much powder, so much.
It's disgusting.
And then my character. So I played McCavity, but McCavity is interesting. McCavity is that classic bad guy that you hear about the whole show, but then you only see him for about 2 minutes in Act 2, right? So I had another part that I mostly did, which in Germany they call Plato, which is Plato the philosopher. What's awesome is he's the narcoleptic cat, the cat that just falls asleep all the time. So like, okay, I know that many people perhaps do not want to go watch Cats. But as a performer, boy, oh boy, is it interesting. Half of the show is improvised. They say to you, the director says, okay, you have 32 counts, get from extreme stage left to extreme straight right. Make sure at some point you say hi to Gus and then finish off on top of the car boot. Yes, now and forever. Right? Like there's so much freedom in the show, right? It's based on poems. How beautiful is that, right?
And it's also the like entry, like if you're a young dancer and you start, it's an entry into dance as a storytelling. And I hear my teacher, like all we had to do was like this, and it was like, first it was like dog, and then it was like, and like I understand. And it changed. It just changed the move, and it's this whole entry into storytelling. So
it's like nothing. It was also, I should say, that's the first musical I saw when I was a kid, when I was 9, and then I became obsessed. It became my dream. I wanted to be in it. That's why I started dancing, and so at the moment when I was offered the show a million years ago, I was a company dancer with the Danny Grissom Dance Company in Toronto. I also was offered a role in The Lion King in Toronto, and I was offered Cats. So I had these 2 offers at the same time while I was working with the Grossman Company. And the strategic choice would have been Lion King, sometimes I kind of kick myself for not choosing that, to just sort of
No.
become a part of the Toronto community.
It was
But
your
the
dream.
emotional choice. I know, I had this dream come true.
You would have like broken your boat back for
something would have gone in liking. Yeah, something.
Yeah.
So the makeup, they teach you how on the first day, and that postcard that you showed, that Mel showed, that was my like second day of work. I know the one before. That's when I was an expert. That one, this one. So I'm upstage center. You probably can't zoom in, but it is like, it's the worst makeup because this is my second day. I had no idea what I was doing, and it's like, it just looks like I dipped my face in a bowl of milk. My whole face is basically just white. But then if you go to the other picture, you'll see that there's like brown and gray, and there's all these, like, I was getting into contouring, and like, there's so much more going on. Anyway, so yeah, they teach you how, and they divide your face in half. They do half, they like do it all up, teach you how. They'll be like, okay, first you put the white on. So then they'll do like your eye. Then you put the white on your other eye. Then they show you how to do your mouth. And then you do, right? It's on and on until your whole face is painted, right? And they take pictures of every step of the way. So your reference pictures are also these really ugly photos of you learning. And I had everything was just like, you hadn't learned. I mean, I don't know, maybe people who put makeup on every day like know the planes of their face really well, but I don't wear makeup every day. So I didn't know, like, oh, to get the perfect like, now if you gave me a brush, I would be like, whoop, cats, perfect, like, done. You do it so much, right? But like, it was really cool to study my face like that, not out of vanity, but just to like learn how to apply makeup. I have like a heavy lid. I have, I don't have a strong jawline. So how do I like use this makeup to become the prettiest cat ever, which is what I affectionately called myself. That's vanity. But yeah, you get really good at doing it. And you get good at doing it fast also, because when I first started, I think it took me like an hour and 20 minutes. And then by the end of the contract, it was 22 and a half minutes to get all that makeup on. And there is a shocking amount of powder. Like, so you put on, layers and layers of base, very much like what drag queens do now. Like that same kind of, highlighting and shading and base and base and base, and you building from your lightest color to your darkest color. And then you put so much powder that your entire face is white. Like it's like you have dipped your face. Oh, there it is. Look at that. It looks so bad. Oh God. And also, look at everyone's hand is straight in front of them, and mine's like off to the side for no reason except I was so excited to be on this set. So embarrassed. Like, and I mean, whatever. It's like, but what's cool is like, it was a big show, and they gave you all kinds of gifts and merchandise and all these postcards. Is great. So you like your face is like a powdered donut, and then you brush it off and set it with a paper towel with cold water, and then it doesn't move until intermission. Wow. My character, because I had to change into McCavity, like quick change into McCavity and quick change out of McCavity. The second act, you have to like leave just your eyes on. First you add on all the orange and white and black for McCavity, like really thick lines and fangs and blood sometimes if you're feeling cheeky. And then you have probably 8 minutes to take it off, reapply makeup, get back on stage during the Mr. Mistopheles song, and then catch him when he jumps off a tire. Like if you miss him, he jumps off the tire, big split, front somersault, and then you do a step chair, right? With your like freshly done face. So if you were, not paying attention, he would just be on the ground. The stress of that change, it's like I feel the anxiety even now. Because you had to take off makeup and put it on again. Crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. Because, wow. That was
a good time.
It's.
I have to. You know what? Some school needs to do it, because you totally touch on something with dance as a way of communicating. The lessons that I learned as a performer from doing cats were incredible. The first one being to dig deeper. It is so difficult. The show is so hard. It's like, and I've also done West Side Story, which I think is like also known as like the other, like, it is so taxing physically, so I learned how to dig deep and just like tap into resources that I didn't know I had. I learned makeup. I learned how to like do my face. I learned how to take care of my skin because you become such a pimply mess from all that makeup on and off. I learned how to be fully embodied, right? Like when you're on stage almost the entire show. In Act 1, the only break is Mungo, Jerry, Rumpelteazer. And Act 2, for me, I guess I got a break during Skimbleshanks because that's when I was doing my costume change and re-warming up to run my solo, because you cool down after intermission, and then you just stay cool until your solo. So I had to like warm up again for my solo and then do your solo, catch Mistopheles, and then you're like, okay, the hard part, like I can relax, right?
It's
but
amazing
it's like,
how much you remember, like how
oh my God,
ingrained in you.
I could teach you the whole show right now.
Yeah. I can't get enough of dance. Like I can't handle it. I can't handle how. Did you see the Grammy Awards when they did The Body Electric?
Yes.
Oh.
I know. I know. It's like, what I'm really encouraged by right now, by the way? So at the Musical Stage Company, that was like a big detour back to Musical Stage Company. Yeah. So I started as artistic consultant there, and then became an associate artist, which was really awesome. And then just this week was announced that I've been appointed the deputy artistic director. So I'm part of the senior leadership team at Musical Stage Company, which is very exciting. Yes, Debbie.
I can do it. I'm choreography, Debbie.
You're like, I don't need a lesson. We'll just do it together.
As long as there's no going onto the floor, because I won't be able to get back up.
Oh my God. So today I ran 5K today, and I was stretching afterwards, and I was like, I don't know, kneeling down for some reason. I was like, I used to slam to my knees like it was no problem. I guess that's youth when you can do that stuff when you're young. Oh my God, train of thought. Oh yeah, Musical Stage Company. So deputy artistic directors joined the senior leadership team, and a lot of my efforts are currently focused on just kind of opening the gates a little bit and meeting new artists and bringing new artists into the field, into our fold, I should say. Mm-hmm. So wait, I just lost my train of thought.
No, it's good. It's good. It was good. It was all good. It was good. Oh. And I also wanted, I think about the fact that I don't perform anymore. And then you were lucky that you got to perform a couple of times. Although I don't know, was it worth it, Ray, or am I really missing out?
The shock is when you stop, like we talked about, if you go to the floor, you can't get up anymore.
Yeah.
You can get up, but it's like the tiny intrinsic muscles. So my best friend that I met, we met at the Stratford Festival. His name is Stephen Gray, Dr. Stephen Gray. He's a brand new chiropractor, just finished it, and his clinic is called Made to Move Clinic. Plug for my friend Stephen, check him out. And he does all these exercises. He's doing a lot of conditioning for dancers, and does all these exercises for the intrinsic foot muscles, right? Like the little muscles in between. So if that was your foot, like the muscles there, right, in between your metatarsals, the muscles like in the arch of your foot.
Yeah.
Only dancing keeps those things in shape. Do you know what I mean? So those muscles are gone. You think, sure, I can do a split jump. There's nothing to catch you on the way down, or the tiny muscles that help you get up off the floor, right? Like, so it's the crime is that I stopped dancing, right, daily. It was really ingrained in us. I trained at Ryerson in the dance program after Dome, and the incredible faculty that really taught us how to have a long and safe career. Like when I think about it, I really had to stop once. It was actually doing cats, and what I actually had was not a dance injury, but a repetitive injury. So I would run out of my cavity, get on the tire, do this big jump off the tire, and land right on. There were these metal footlights on the floor for the opera team. I can't remember if they were even used, but they were there in the floor, this track of metal lights. So I jump from a thing that's like, 4 feet off the ground, jump high off of that thing, land on this metal thing, dancey dance, and then jump off the stage another 2 feet down into the auditorium onto concrete. and I would do the same jump every time, kind of like a double retire kind of thing, like both knees up and both ankles crossed, kind of like Spider-Man, right? And so I was always landing on the same foot on the metal thing and then on the concrete. And so eventually my Achilles my calf came close to tearing and my Achilles came close to rupturing. So I had to take some time off. But other than that, the training I got at Ryerson and the work ethic, which was what they really drilled into us, was keep training, train smart, perfect practice makes perfect, and you will be healthy. And you know what? I really was. So it's long career. I retired in 2011. What was the last show I did? The last show was either a chorus line or West Side Story. One of the two. West Side Story was the last show I did. Vancouver Opera, Tracy Fly choreographed. And I never looked back until 2 years ago when my mentor, who I met at the Stratford Festival, Michael Lichtefeld, called me and said, "Ray, I'm going to a new theater and I only want people I love nearby. Will you be in the show?" And I was like, I think I wrote back, "Ha ha 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 ha." I said, Michael, I sat down 5 years ago and I haven't gotten up since. Like the last time you saw me, which would have been in that same year I retired, I was dance captain and associate director and associate choreographer of Guys and Dolls that he directed and choreographed for Drayton Entertainment. And that's an amazing story of remounting a show, a surprise remount of a show. It was an incredible production. So I was like, the last time you saw me, I could do things. I can't, like, if you stood me up on a chair and said jump down, my answer would be no.
I know. Oh.
So only because I don't know what would give first, my foot, my ankle, my knee, my hip, my back. I don't know. I have no idea. I haven't done anything.
We have 10 minutes left. I feel like so much more I want to talk to you about. We're old. Moving on.
We're old. Also, I'll say this just to wrap up about the going back on stage. It was so incredible to feel the camaraderie of the cast. There is nothing like that family. And when you directors out there, when you direct or when you choreograph, you're just on the outside and you kind of want to be part of the team, but of that group, that ensemble feeling, but you're just not. Your job takes you out of it all the time, right? And that's the thing you miss the most.
Yes.
It's so fun to also interact with an audience, because also when you direct, you can participate, you can sit with the audience, but you don't get the exchange. And I'm not talking about the applause. I'm talking about
energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Connection. We were watching the movie Fame, the 1980s version of Fame, just last week. And what was interesting is that everybody remembers Fame for fame, the dancing on cars part, and the starting all these performing arts programs in schools, and what we just described, the moment you're on stage, the body electric. Yeah. But the whole movie, everyone on that, who we were talking about, was like, wow, this happened and this happened and this is this person's journey and this is dark and this is hard and these are these obstacles, and yet that part is not remembered because, and we were just talking about being an artist, that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you go through. It's that moment when you're together with somebody else on stage and the audience. Yeah. And that's gold. Like, you can't manufacture that anywhere else. And that's why we won't do anything else, because we have to do it. But it's like, for those 3 minutes to get to the finale, when there's a life of trauma.
I'll say, okay, parting shot on going back on stage. Yeah. The biggest surprise for me was that I'm no longer used to the adrenaline spike and crash. So for the entire duration of the contract, I'd come home like, "Hi, everybody," at midnight, and I'd be wired. And then it would be 6 a.m. I fell asleep on the couch every single day. I fell asleep on the couch because the adrenaline wears off and you're just like, boom, out cold. And I do not remember. That's something that I completely forgot about. Anyway,
wow.
Full contract, asleep on the couch every day.
All right. Okay. So we're coming up to our final 5 minutes. So I because it's so good, I know we've kind of left the topic. I didn't get to talk about St. George's. Okay, and Ray went to St. George's, but I guess I wanted. We don't have time. I need another hour with you, Ray. So I'm not going to bring that up. I wanted to just show a clip of you in action because I just wanted. We have some footage of you in the rehearsal room of Indecent.
Oh my goodness.
And I just think, you know, like here we are meeting you, and we saw photos of you as a dancer. But like, I want to show, like, we happen to have this footage of you actually in the room working with the actors on Indecent. So let's play a little bit of that before we say goodbye.
But whip it over you. I think it's got to come off. Oh, I can't fit this jacket. But I imagine that you'd be able to do this with it after it got into your hand. That you'd be able to get it so off, and then now whoosh somewhere. It can be one hand or two hands. That's it. Great. That's it. Okay.
You know, but like. It's, you know what that shows though? That every single move, even taking a jacket off, and there were a lot of jackets in that show.
Yeah,
was a thing.
You know, I think one of the beautiful things that I heard long ago, and really gave me a grounding for how to do my work, was that for every minute of theater you see, it takes an hour to prepare and rehearse, right?
Yeah.
So what the reason it takes so much time, so I'll say that again for people who are not in the industry. For every minute that you see on stage, it takes an hour of preparation and an hour of work, rehearsal, to make the thing happen. And that is just to remind viewers that it is all intentional, right? That every single moment of a good play, and I think we did really good work on Indecent, is thought out, is pre-planned, is examined. If it was an egg, it's cracked open and you look into both sides of that shell, but that you leave no stone unturned, right? And so that when you're finished your process, whether it's compressed as many of our processes are, like very short, 2.5 weeks rehearsal time, or if it's strapped for the luxury of 3 months of rehearsal, the Shaw Festival, that you have really, really examined each moment of your show, and you have also made, in collaboration with your team and your artists and your actors, you've made choices in order to tell the vision of the director's story as accurately and clearly as possible. And it's like, I love, one of the great things about working with you is we would sit down and we'd sort of lean into each other, and then we'd look at each other and say, we can do better. And then we'd get up, right? We'd get up and we'd re-examine the moment. And we'd be like, there's something about the way you're taking off that jacket. Let's make it better.
I know, because all the details. It's the details that you can tell when someone cares about the details. Mm-hmm. Or when it's just not pleasing. Like, yes. like if something isn't done, if something doesn't serve the story, it takes attention away from it.
Absolutely.
So you're caught with that, and you're like,
that's I don't like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard because sometimes it's like your baby, right? You're like, but I love that step. I made that step, and I birthed that step. Nope.
Yeah.
You have to be ruthless sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. I think we even have another clip too. Oh, this is the kick line race.
The infamous kick line.
And playing the violin, there was Briga playing the violin and dancing at the same time.
Lunge, kick, ball, change, lunge, change, step, low, ball, change. Yeah. How can I help you with this? How can I help you? I'm like, how can I help you? I just want to. Don't bring your knees underneath.
Here's more.
Right now, as you roll, I see your front relative to your back. I'm so it's like I need to be on stage at all times. I'm so hands-on.
Well, but how else is someone supposed to understand what you're doing if you're not?
That's true.
And Ray, look, you rolled on the floor and you're gonna get up.
Look at that! I'm getting up. I know. But I had to do like the hockey stand-up. I had to like push on my knee.
That's too
You
much.
know.
Here's more.
I love artists.
Look how good we had such a good group. Oh,
There's no like sharpness.
they trusted us.
Yeah.
You know,
And they worked so hard. I
So
think
hard.
sometimes too, like an audience will come see a show, and it looks sort of fun, even if it's like a serious dramatic piece. It looks like people are having fun because I think actors bring humor. Like for me, good actors always bring humor, no matter what the piece is. And I don't know. It can look so fun that people forget that, or you think, oh, the actors are so professional that this must come easy to them. But again, it's like there's so much rigor to the practice. There's so much work on their part.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is like my sister works. She works in IT. She works on computers, right? So if her computer program's bad, she's not bad. Just it was a bad program. But like the actors, their self, including their emotions, that's their work, right? So there's so much vulnerability that they bring.
My late cousin, Joseph Wiseman, was a great actor of the stage, even though he was known for Dr. No in the James Bond movie.
Yes.
But he was a great actor for the stage. He played Richard III, and he would tell me he would never be done thinking about his character and about his role to the point where even when the show closed, it was still there. And it took like a real recovery period before he could let it go, because you never stop thinking about how to do it better and better.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, every show.
Show.
No, yeah. Like I have fixes. Like I have fixes for Indecent. I have fixes for every show I've done. I'm like, oh, I need to do that one again so I can fix that bit.
Okay. So to finish, how if you know how to write the next chapter when we come back, be it, we heard Broadway shows won't come back now till 2021. I've been saying that for the Segal Center too, that I don't think it's going to happen before then. So I'm thinking a lot about our next chapter and what that's going to look like. And for you, when we come back, what's it going to look like? What's the art going to look like?
I think what we're going to want to do is, I think what we're going to enjoy the most is art that kind of takes us through everything we've been through, right? The horrible uncertainty, the trying to be strong and stoic for your children, the loss of self, identity, work, money, autonomy. Like it's almost like I feel like we need to go through that again, and then we need to see in some way that everything's okay, because here we are, by and large, doing okay, right? There's still a lot of uncertainty, but it's like parks are open. You can now hang out with a pod of 10. That there's this unfolding or refolding of back into some sort of normal. I also hope that, unrelated to theater, that we hang on to the connections. There's been such a gift of spending time with my children. My kids are on the cusp of being teenagers, right? 12 and 10, 10-year-old daughter, 12-year-old son. And this gift to spend 3 months in the house together, just being together, is, I'm so thankful. As I'm on the verge of them becoming independent and no longer really wanting to spend time with me, right? Or not, no, that's not, I shouldn't say that, but just becoming themselves, right? They're on the verge of something different. There's been this gift, there's been this slowdown, there's been this reconnecting with values and with people that really matter to you. And I think that we're going to want to see all of that reflected in the theater. And I think that the universal stories, the universal plays do that, like the kink in my hair. No, but it does.
How big is the cast, Ray?
It's 8 women,
Okay,
8 Black women. But just, honestly, what's amazing about that play is that it really does. It takes you through all of the joys and triumphs of life, and all of the sorrows and disappointments of life, and grief and loss and anger and frustration and rage, but also incredible light and humor and fun and connection and community. And I think that kind of work that is really sweeping in its scope is going to be what we are drawn to. I can't imagine myself sitting through like a really heavy drama that has no hope at the end. Nor can I imagine myself sitting through just a very entertaining fluff piece, right? It's like I want to feel that the joyousness, but I also feel like I need a message. I need a message of connection and community and togetherness. You know,
like we want to be reminded of what you came out for.
Yes. Yeah.
To wear the mask and to sit not next to somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Ray.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
I mean, I hope that if you're watching, or for anyone's watching now, that you share this nightcap, because all the nightcaps are kept on our Segal website, but this one in particular, I think having you and some of the things we talked about in the beginning are really critical conversations that we're all having within our circles, and that's where it starts. Like, watch the nightcap at home and then have these conversations with your friends or your family, and that's the beginning. And I can't thank you enough for being you, and we have to like come visit your family here so we can hang out.
I would love that.
Yeah, here, Richard. Yes, the storytelling will be very rich.
I can't wait. I can't wait to interact with those artists who write. I'm not a writer, but those who do, I can't wait to work with them on what has been brewing and what they're ready to bring forward. I'm so excited. So I am a hopeful person.
Thanks, Mel, behind the scenes. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Good luck with Prime Mover Company.
Thank you.
We'll hear from you again. And thanks, everybody. Have a good night. I'm sure your kids are still up, like mine. They stay up to like midnight.
Probably. Oh, yeah. Last night they got in trouble. There was some Lego play at midnight. I had an angry dad voice last night. Why are you still awake? It's midnight.
All right. I'm going to go to bed.
Good night.
Yeah. Good night. Bye. Bye, everybody.